When people talk, listen, man, I'm going to raise that red flag.
This narrative, especially after 1 year.
1 year.
One bad year. It's one big splash move. And because I don't think people understand how much cap space we can create.
Alex, I want to ask you, because you're a very humble person.
And I'm never going to be right about anything.
Yeah.
I was right.
We're back again. Holy crap. Yo, I'm just like crushing them, just pushing these out. Like I'm just like a Energizer bunny. I just like keep going and going and going. Yeah, weirdly enough, the Panthers don't play this weekend, and we are talking so much about the Panthers. And I get most of my when I say we, I'm talking about Panthers Twitter. Because we just watched the Chargers get annihilated by the Texans. And instead of us talking about anything else, most of the content was, we should have drafted Ladd. Why did we draft Ladd? Like, Ladd was the guy. And I do not disagree with that. I liked the XL pick because when you're the Panthers, you need as much upside as possible, because like you just need to hit on those guys, because you're always going to be a team that doesn't get the top free agents because they're going to want to go somewhere else. We're going to have to overpay for them. Like you're just at a disadvantage when you're a small market. So I'm okay with like going for upside, but I was under the impression that Ladd would be the best fit for the Panthers. But whatever. Like it's year one. We saw flashes from Leggett, and we knew it was always going to be a project. We knew it was going to be a lot like DK, and we literally just did this. We just did this last year with Bryce. Like we literally just got proven wrong about this, that we were like, Bryce is the bust, we should have taken CJ Stroud, like what are we doing, Panthers? Like, why did we do this? Like it was so obvious that we should have taken Stroud. And now Bryce crushes it second year because it was his first year. Like he's a baby. He's 21 years old or 22. I don't know how old he is, but like he's a baby. Like you can't just write somebody off after a year, and you can't crown somebody after a year. So like us crowning Ladd, oh, he's a superstar. Like he's gonna be he might be. This is not saying that he will not be, but we still keep doing this. Why do we do this every single year? We see a rookie, automatically he's great, or automatically he's a bust. When we literally just saw this. We just saw this. And even if we don't want to say quarterback, Jackson Smith and Jigba last year had 628 yards and 4 touchdowns. Now, this year he had 1,130 receiving yards and 6 touchdowns. You can jump big from year 1 to year 2, and you can also regress. Why do we keep doing this? We're so ready to like be the first to comment about something and be right about something, and I told you so kind of people, that we ignore that we did it last year with Bryce. People did it with JSN. All that aside, it's too early on both of them. So like that's my main point about that. But you're not coming on here for me to lecture you about chill out. So I want to kind of just like talk about maybe some comps, comps that I see that the jump could be, and some realistic comps. So 2023, I think Quentin Johnston is a decent comp for Xavier Leggett. So Xavier Leggett this year had 497 receiving yards and 4 touchdowns, which, I mean, that's not uncommon. Like, that's Devontae Adams' number. It's a rookie year average numbers. We think about like the drops and all that kind of stuff, which his catch percentage was 58.3%. Like, to put that in perspective, Xavier Worthy had 60.2%. Like, it's an average kind of number. And along with that, like we compare Xavier Leggett to Ladd, but we don't compare him to like guys like A.D. Mitchell, who had 312 yards and 0 touchdowns. or Jalen Polk, who had 87 yards on the season. And they were drafted like not far after Xavier Legette. So I don't think any of them are going to be bust. I think they're all going to be good. It's just year one, man. It's like, why do we keep doing this? All right. So, anyways, going back to, I think Quentin Johnston is a very good comp. So, Legette had 497 yards. Johnston had 431 yards. Legette had 4 touchdowns. Johnston had 2. Johnston's leap from 431 was to 711 this year and 8 touchdowns. If Xavier Legette gets that next year as a wide receiver 2 in our offense, like I'm begging, please don't be wide receiver 1, but as the wide receiver 2 in this offense, I'm not mad at it. 7, 11, and 8 is a realistic goal for Legette next year, I think, in my opinion. So that would be my comp for that jump. If we go to 2022, my comp for what I expect in the role that Excel had, Raheem Shaheed. So this, like, in his Legette's rookie year, he had 497 yards. Again, I keep on saying it, but might have to clip it later. I don't know, so I'm gonna say it. Legette had 497 yards and 4 touchdowns, and Shaheed had 488 yards and 2 touchdowns. So very, very similar outside of the touchdowns. And then he jumped from that to second year, 719 yards and 5 touchdowns. So it's almost like a little bit of a trend between those guys. So second year kind of in this, I think they're kind of similar roles because they're downfield guys. They're big play guys, close to 500 yards and moving to, 750 and more touchdowns is a pretty good role for what I would want from Excel in the second year. Now, we haven't seen Johnston's third year yet, and Shaheed got hurt this year. So, but I don't know if you guys remember Shaheed's first few games. He was insane. So let's go back one more year and let's see a comp that we could see year 3. I'm talking about pure upside. I don't want to say that this is good. This isn't who he's going to be, but this is somebody he could be. Nico Collins was supposed to be a second round pick. He was always touted as a great athlete, but his route acumen was a problem. Like, he needed to get better with his route running, his route technician, being a route technician. But Nico Collins is 6'4" and 223 pounds. Xavier Legette is 6'3", 227 pounds. Nico, 6'4", 223. Legette, 6'3", 227. Very similar sizes. Collins ran a 4.45 40. Nico Collins ran a 4.39 40. So athletically, same size, same speed. They both, out of college, were projected second round picks, and the knock on them was their route acumen. Well, turns out our head coach used to work with receivers. Isaac is pretty good at working with wide receivers. So my assumption is that their assumption is that they can coach this guy and develop him sort of like a guy named DK Metcalf, who sort of the same size and speed. So let's look at Collins' production. His first year, he had 446 yards and 1 touchdown. Legette had 497 and 4. Collins had 446 and 1. The following year, Collins only played 10 games because he got hurt, but he was 481 and 2. If I take that to 7 games, 816 and 3. So I said this year, Johnston, 711 and 8. Shaheed, 719 and 5. Collins, 816 and 3. And then year 3 Collins, who is set up sort of the same way as Legette, as far as his size, speed, his weaknesses coming out of college. Year 3, 1,297 yards and 8 touchdowns. So that production is within the realm of possibilities. I'm not saying that that's what's going to happen, but guys like this, first year of the 400s, second year 700s and 800s, and then hopefully you become Nico Collins and get that big year. Like you learn, you grow, and year 3 is your big breakout. Like how many people called JSN a bust? Like they'd rather have Zay Flowers or Addison. Like why was he the guy taken? Because he only had 628 yards and 4 touchdowns. It looks pretty silly now, right? Because he had 11, 30, and 6, and he was awesome down the stretch. Gotta give it time. Gotta stop doing this with rookies. Like any rookie, if they do well, great. They did. Jeremy Chin was amazing as a rookie, and then we didn't see it for the rest of his career, basically in Carolina. I just wanted to touch on that because I saw it quite a bit, and I don't disagree that Lad, based on my opinion of the players, should have been the choice. But I don't know. I'm a guy. I don't. No one knows because he could be Nico Collins. I don't know. So that aside, I wanted to touch on, because I made a pretty definitive point the last episode, and I said if we don't get Higgins or Wilson, it's a failure. And I still think that. I think there are other guys that can make me not as upset that we didn't get them. Like I think that Ayuk is a possibility. I think Devonta Smith is a possibility. I think that Cortland Sutton is a possibility. I think that Tyreek Hill, of course, we talked about. There are possibilities that I won't be pissed about. But if we want to be serious, I think that we need to go get one of these guys. So let's see what that would cost, right? Because everybody's like, well, I don't want to trade an 8th pick, or I don't want to. Let's just see what it costs. I brought up the most recent big trades, right? Stephon Diggs, AJ Brown, Tyreek Hill, and Devontae Adams. Devontae Adams when he went to the Raiders, not Devontae Adams to the Jets. So those were the big receiver trades that I could think of that were like the recent trades to just kind of see where the market is. So it seems like the first pick that you would send has to be a first. Like it has to. Or else you're not going to get them. So with Diggs, it was the 22nd. The AJ Brown was the 18th. The Adams was the 22nd. And the Hill was the 21st. So the minimum is going to be the first, and it needs to be like middle to late first. So that is the standard. With Diggs and AJ Brown, which were the furthest away, AJ Brown was the 18th and that 4th at 101. So a fairly early 4th and the 18th pick, which is the top of all of them. So that's the cheapest. Diggs went for 22nd, a 5th, a 6th, and a future 4th. And that was in the Morgan era. So Morgan has seen them do that trade. So 22nd, 5th, 6th, and future 4th. Adams went for 1st, 22nd, and the 2nd, and 53rd. That's probably Hill's the most expensive, but that's pretty expensive. But you're a bad organization as the Raiders, and you have someone that wants to be there. He wanted to go play with Carr, which never happens. So if you're the Raiders, you know someone of that caliber wants to sign with you, so you just pay up for it. And that's kind of how I feel about the Panthers. Like, no one wants to come play for the Panthers. So when somebody does at that caliber, I'm willing to do that kind of package. A same year, 1st and 2nd. So let's go to the Hill trade. And Hill, Mike McDaniel talked about it. He said, Tyreek Hill's available. whatever it takes. And they really, really did. So they gave up 21st overall pick, a second rounder that year, 2 fourths, and a sixth for Tyreek Hill, and then paid him $30 million a year. I think Tyreek Hill was 28 when that happened. So you're talking about 28-year-old got that. Adams, I think, was 29 when that happened. And we're talking about Garrett Wilson was a high first-round pick. He's 24 years old, and he's put up 3 straight 1,000-yard seasons. You can't get, if you just didn't say the names, and you say, yeah, I got a guy on a rookie contract that has performed every single year, he doesn't miss games, and he wants to come to your bad organization. Yeah, whatever it takes. We got to stop with the whole, where does he rank among receivers? He's not going to miss. He's a can't miss guy. And that's a lot. Like, you can't miss the floor, and this is so important. So when your floor is top 20 receiver in the league, and your ceiling is top 5 receiver in the league, what is that worth? That's worth a ton. I mean, Devontae Adams, he was 29. He couldn't play, he couldn't get on the field. He kept on getting hurt. It didn't do anything for you. And he was expensive. Tyreek Hill was expensive. So what would that be worth? In my opinion, that's more valuable than any of these guys. Diggs was 27 when he went. A.J. Brown's the only real comp because he was in his 3rd year as well, or he was in his 4th. I can't remember what year specifically, but he was on his rookie deal, and then they extended him because he was a 2nd or 3rd round pick. He didn't have a 5th-year option. We would have Wilson his 4th year and his 5th-year option. That is, I think it probably would take the 8th pick, and I think it would take the 8th pick plus to bring him in, and I think you do it. For 10 years of can't miss production, probably not 10 years, probably more like 7 years. But a guy that plays every game, produces every game, every year, and wants to play with your quarterback, absolutely. I don't know how as Panthers fans we got to we got to play hardball with these guys. No, they're gonna be like, okay, I'll go play with the Chiefs. Like, we can't play hardball with people. We have to overpay people. So I think that if he's on the table, which I still don't think he'll be on the table because I don't think that a new GM and a new head coach are going to get rid of good young players unless they could be like Ryan Poles, be like, we fleeced the Panthers. They got to show that we got the 8th pick. We got the 8th pick plus a 4th round. I don't know whatever it would take. I don't know what that would be, but they'd have to show their fan base that we're already cooking. Like Fitterer did, and we thought he was incredible because he brought these guys on, and we still sucked. Like he brought in Gilmore and he brought in Hassan Reddick, and like oh, he cooked. We're still bad because we're the Panthers. We thought Teddy Bridgewater was going to be like elite because he won like 4 games in a row with the Saints the year before. So another thing that the Panthers do, they overreact and they somehow think we have any kind of leverage at all. And we don't. So I went into my last video saying what you should do as far as building a roster. And I always said that year 3, your quarterback gets their wide receiver 1. And A.J. Brown, Diggs, Hill, Ridley for Trevor Lawrence. And that's what you should do. That obviously has worked for a lot of these teams. Dan Morgan knows this. When Dan Morgan was with Seattle, they had Russell Wilson. The only 2 times... There's only 2 times that Dan Morgan team has traded a 1st-round pick for a receiver. And that was 3rd year Russell Wilson. They traded a 1st, which is 23rd, a 7th, and a future 3rd, which is kind of in line with all these other trades. So the markets kind of stayed the same. And they traded for Percy Harvin, and they won a Super Bowl. Now, while he was in Seattle, he didn't get a chance to get another third-year quarterback because Russell Wilson was the future. But then he goes to the Bills. In 2018, they get Josh Allen. And then 2019, they evaluate Josh Allen. And they say, 3rd year, we're going to roll with you. Let's get you a wide receiver 1. So they get him Stephon Diggs, which cost him a 22nd, a 5th, a 6th, and a future 4th. So the commonalities is future, 22nd and 23rd, so 22nd and 23rd. And a later pick, so it was 5th, 6th, future 4th, 7th, future 3rd. So that's kind of the value that they see. I think it's going to cost a little bit more for Wilson, but maybe not. That seems to be what they're willing to pay because he's done it twice, or his team has done it twice. So he knows this. So I am very confident that he's going to do his best, that he is going to do his best to get someone in. But been turned down by Patrick Queen, Luvu left, got turned down by the linebacker over the Broncos. Does he have salesmanship? I don't know. I don't know what happened with those, but they didn't come. So, I don't know, whatever. So let's see how we get there. So we pretty much said that with these 5 players, you got 22nd overall, 18th overall, 22nd, 21st, 23rd. So we need to get into that little bucket of 18 to 22, which is hard to say who that's going to be because of the playoffs. We don't know who's going to own those picks. But let's just look at the teams that we have relationships with. Seahawks, perfect example. They own the 18th pick, which is the same pick that got A.J. Brown. What do they need? They definitely need some offensive line help. And they need some B-line help. So if someone like Mason Graham or Campbell or one of those early offensive linemen, or I think they're okay at edge, but they still need edges. I think they could use any of those early. And I think they would love to trade up. I think they would love to get more talent on that team. So they own 18 and 50. So there might be a way where we can get 50 and 18 for 8 and a 4th maybe. So we could still have 3 picks in the first 2 rounds and then use 18 in the package. And I think that Seahawks would be fine moving and doing that. So the Seahawks, it almost works out kind of perfect that the Seahawks have the 18th pick because that's somebody that they do business with because of the connections there. Now the Bills, we have no idea where they're going to end up because they haven't played yet. But if they lost this week, they'd be in the early 20s. And they also have 2 second-round picks. So could we get early 20s and then middle 2nd for 8? Probably need probably need like a later 4th or something like that as well. But we have a relationship with them, and they could have an early 20s pick. So that's an option. And then we just did a trade with the Rams. The Rams definitely need offensive line help. And they need quarterback help. If Will Johnson is there at 8, and they're in the playoffs too. If they get bounced in the first round, they'll have an early 20s pick. And that's what we see that you need as a through line to get somebody like Wilson. So it almost works out perfectly the way that our relationships are with these guys. That we have it I mean, there's also like Colts. That's who we traded with to move up to get Brooks. They own 14 and 45. We can do a little bit of work there. So just because we have 8 does not mean they're not abilities to move. The only other thing I'm going to talk about on that is value players. So Brown is off the table and Horn is off the table. Is because of the Coker experience, would we consider putting Leggett on the table? And what's he worth? So if you're the Jets and you say we're losing our first round receiver, but we're getting another first round receiver, and we're getting picks, that's easier to sell. Is Leggett on the table? Would he be on the table? Ikem Ekwonu, I just don't know. Everybody needs offensive line help. I don't know how the rest of the league thinks about him. But regardless, he is a talented left tackle experience on a rookie deal that we could pick up the fifth year option for. Can we replace him? I don't know the answer to that. I don't know if Brady Christensen could do it. I don't know if Yosh could do it. But maybe. I don't know. So Leggett and Icky kind of feel like the two valuable trade pieces. It's like Django Unchained, where Leonardo DiCaprio was like, you had my curiosity, but now you have my attention. And I think that Ikem Ekwonu and Xavier Leggett could be the two to do that. And they might be the only two if Brown and Horn are off the table. I mean, outside of Bryce. So that's another thing of valuable things that we could use to get the things that we need. Which, if you watched my last video, we went through it. In this order, you want QB, offensive line, defensive tackle, wide receiver 1, edge, cornerback 1, safety. So, if you don't have to give up your quarterback, and your offensive line is not going to take a big hit, and you're not trading Brown or Horn, in theory, everybody else should be on the table because you desperately need your wide receiver 1, and you desperately need your edge. So that's what I wanted to talk about. That something to think about. I'm going to go into draft history and what we have done, just kind of like I brought up Percy Harvin, to show that Morgan has done it twice, and when you've done it once, it can be an outlier. If you do it twice, you know what you're doing. So he knows what he's doing. Also, they gotta stop treating us like we're stupid. All right, I'll go to like a small little rant here. Somehow, and this is how I call the Canales coaching, because there was a peep from the Panthers. There wasn't a peep so much that they actually talked about the Panthers because we weren't talking. Like, nothing comes out. Things come out because you want them to come out, right? Nothing came out until all of a sudden there's like a little chat about Canales. Panthers like Canales. It was a really good interview with Canales. Momentum building for Canales. Nothing came out. But all of a sudden momentum's building. Why do you do that? You want to show your fans that this is who you're thinking about. Let me see if the fans like it. Is it a bad idea? Like, we want to just like get some little bit of feedback. Like, the chatter, is it good, positive, negative? What's the data showing? And I was like, he's getting hired. Like, duh. You already gone through this many interviews and nothing came out, and all of a sudden there's like momentum about Canales? Yeah, it's when people talk, listen. Like, the definition of when people talk, listen. So we know how to keep our mouth shut, right? Before the trade deadline, or like I think right after the trade deadline, shout out to C3 Anthony because he showed it to me. It came out that the Panthers tried to get T. Higgins and Devontae Adams at the deadline. Well, how do they know? We know how to be quiet. Like, we know. Either it was Higgins' agent and Devontae Adams' agent got together and both contacted Pro Football Talk at the same time and told them individually that we contacted the Raiders, which they wouldn't know anything about. So in theory, actually, it would be the Raiders GM and the Bengals GM got together with them at once and told them, no, we leaked it. Why? We leaked it because we wanted to tell Panthers we're trying to get a wide receiver one. So Dan, knowing him, year 3, got Percy Harvin. Year 3, got Diggs. Year 2, telling everybody that they're trying to get a wide receiver one. He knows he's supposed to get a wide receiver one. So it's going to happen. Who that is, I don't know. And if it's not Wilson or Higgins, it's a failure. But he's going to do it. I'm pretty confident that he's going to do it. So just throwing that out there, that it's going to happen. But I don't know if it's going to be a signing or it's going to be a trade. I hope it's a trade with the Jets for Wilson. But Jets are a poorly run organization when they will have a new GM and head coach. So there's a lot of variables that we don't know yet with that situation. So we'll see. I just kind of wanted to talk you through what it would look like for us to trade for it, because we're so like black and white when we look at these things. It's like, oh, we only have $30 million in cap space. That's like, and we can only pay this much money for whoever we need. No, you can manipulate it. You can change it. You can restructure. Stop looking at cap space. It's so complicated. Like, it's so hard to, because it's not only can you just do it in a broad term of saying, we'll just restructure this way. Each contract is very specific about the details of how to, they can be restructured. So it's so complicated. So let's not do it. We can manipulate our picks to get the picks that it takes to trade. So it's got to be, I'm not trading 8 for him. We can give him like 50 whatever we're going to get from the Rams. No, we wouldn't trade 8 most likely. We're probably going to have to find ways to get to the area of picks that would take to trade for him. So let's not talk about we're getting 8. Let's talk about how bad do we want him. And we want him bad. I'm just going to let you know we want him bad. So after this, because we've seen what Dan Morgan has done, the next video I'm going to talk about if we trade, with what's left, how do you build the rest of the team? How did he build the rest of the team by need, and who did he get rid of? So who would he be okay with being young and new? Who are the vets that they targeted? Do they want to have a ton of depth at one position? So I'm going to look into that, look into historical data for that, and hopefully have that out for you next week. Unless, a game's going to come up and we're going to be like, oh, man, we should have drafted, I don't know, somebody else. My brain's not working. But appreciate you listening. Like, subscribe, whatever people say at the end of these episodes, and keep pounding.